One of the biggest challenges that I see realtors face today is that potential sellers feels like they can't sell their homes because they have a low interest rate. Another thing that's getting in the way is that these sellers, they have debt. They really want to or need to move, but they don't know how to overcome the hurdle of these elevated rates, manage their high debt at the same time. So I'm going to show you a way to help these people move up and potentially lower their total monthly payments. Now, let's remember that the client probably wants to move up. They want to move into that home because they potentially have some needs, whether it be more rooms, more space, or yard, or location. There's a lot of reasons why people need to or want to move up. But what could be holding them back is the payment shock differential, or just the psychological differential of giving up a low rate. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want to give up a 3% rate, but only about 23% of homeowners have a mortgage rate at 3% or less. There's a lot of people that have mortgage rates between 3 and 4%. So let's think about it more in those terms. Perhaps the rate is somewhere between 3 and 4%, but still, to go into an interest rate that is much higher, let's say 3-4% higher, it can be both more expensive in monthly payment and something that they're just not willing to do and they're reluctant to do because they just don't want to give up that low interest rate they think they've accomplished. So let's take a look at the landscape in an overview first. And when we see the situation with both savings and credit card balances, it paints an interesting picture because people have less savings and more debt today. Now, the shaded area on the graph through the years, well, that represents the recession that we had in early 2020. What was interesting about that, it was followed just 2 months later with a pandemic, so kind of like a double whammy that was received. Now, our personal savings rate was about 10% prior to that period, but when we saw the pandemic as well as a recession, the government came in with big stimulus. And that stimulus, since the economy was essentially shut down, went right into the savings account of many individuals. Now, at the same time, we were increasing credit card balances. So the American public had more and more and more credit card debt, and it reached kind of a peak at the same time. Why? Well, because with the economy shut down and now a lot of stimulus money, what people did, which was wise, is they took their money out of savings to pay down their credit card debt. And that was a good thing to do. Now, another stimulus came not too far after that, and that was spent even more quickly. Now the economy is open, people were shopping, and people were spending that money. And don't worry, because another stimulus was right behind that one, even larger, but it was spent even more rapidly. Now, with no more stimulus coming, consumers kind of like the lifestyle of that. So what they did in order to perpetuate that lifestyle is they drained their savings and jacked up their credit cards. If you take a look, we have now eclipsed our previous all-time high by a large extent. And beyond this chart, we're actually at $1 trillion of credit card debt as a nation. Our savings rate has dropped from 10 to 5%, so a big difference here. So what can be done to help these people? Well, let's remember that the credit card picture is even more troubling when you think about just a year ago, people were paying about 14% on those large credit card balances. But now with a much larger credit card balance, they're paying about 22%. But it isn't just credit cards. How about car payments? They've doubled in the last 3 years to about $800 a month. A lot of those loans are over $1,000 in monthly payment. Now, this kind of understates the issue as well because people have drawn out their car loans from what used to be 3 or 4, even 5 years, and 6 years is kind of the standard right now. Another aspect is home equity lines of credit, which about a year ago were around 3%, and now they're about 9%, maybe a little bit higher. So all these are important considerations. And this tells us that maybe we can come to the rescue by looking at a benefit that's happened in the past several years. And that's equity gain in their home because the housing market has been so strong, home values have been appreciating. The average amount of equity somebody has in their home today is about $231,000. Because the average loan to value is 42%, that means the loan is 42% of the home's value and equity is 58% of the home's value. Now, how much of this can we take out on average in a cash out refinance? Now, according to Black Knight, an American can take out in cash 185 grand. So we've got a problem that people have a lot of debt, but we could have a solution in cash out. So people think they have a 3% rate, but when we actually blend their interest rate by looking at their balances and what the rates that they're paying on those balances, maybe their rate's not 3%. Maybe it's 4, 4.5, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 6, maybe it's more. That's why this is an important exercise to help people understand that they might be paying a lot more than the 3% they're paying just because that's what they see on their mortgage statement. Now, the strategy that we're going to go through here today to help them, that one doesn't work if they have no debt. But as we saw in our charts in the previous slides, many Americans do have debt, and to a large degree as well. So let's just use an example. Let's say their current rate is 3%, and let's say the market rate today is, 7.375. Well, if they purchased their home a few years ago, they've got a mortgage they took out on that home, and now their home value through normal appreciation has gone up. Their balance through normal amortization has gone down, and they've got a lot of equity that we've explained earlier. So the way that most people kind of figure it out is say, okay, here's what I can get for my home. Here's what my loan balance is. I need to account for the cost to sell that home. So I'll have about 465 grand to put as a down payment on the new home, and also my closing costs. So maybe the closing cost on the new home, maybe let's just call it 12 grand for this example. They'll take like that $453,000 in equity after all their expenses and use it as a down payment on the new home. Well, if their dream home is 1.274 million, they subtract the 465 and now they have a loan amount of around 845. Here's where we get into payment shock. Because they're going from a $500,000 initial loan to an $845,000 loan, so a much bigger one, they're probably going to have a higher payment just in that alone, and the increase of the interest rate has increased significantly, so those two factors are going to create some hesitancy. That payment would then be $3,842 more. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of difference, and that might be just a little bit too much for that client to move up. And again, we got to think about the psychological reluctance to give up a 3% rate. But if they have debt, we can start to explore this. Now, as I mentioned, that $3,482 difference in monthly payment might be something where the client is just not willing to go that route. But because they're putting so much down in the example we just reviewed, the loan to value is 64% in this particular example. Now, they can bring that loan to value all the way up to 95% and still qualify. So they've got a lot of room here. So why not take some equity and pay down that debt? Take out a bigger mortgage, wipe out your debts. What would the result of that be? The loan to value would be higher, the mortgage amount would be higher, but their debts would be wiped out. And here's the interesting thing, is that the monthly payment would not be the $3,842 a month higher, it'd be $894 a month higher. There are many examples of where where the clients actually are reducing their overall monthly payments because they have so much high interest rate debt. So this can be an enormous benefit for clients should they decide to move up into a new home, overcome the hurdle of that low rate, low payment relative to what they're seeing in the mortgage statement, what they're seeing in the marketplace today. Now, we hope that this strategy will help you gain activity, help you gain clients, and really help those clients move up into the home of their dreams. Because we know there's so many people out there that still want and need to move and buy homes. And with the debt strategy here that we're going over, this is a real way to help these people and also help you gain some business.